All right, guys. Hello, everyone. We are live today. We're going to have a very interesting conversation with Robert Greenlee from the US. And it's going to last about an hour and a half. I don't really like to go. Normally my lives are 75 minutes, but we're going to have to give equal time to Robert. I'm going to do my presentation first. I'm going to go ahead and get started in a few minutes. And then I plan to cover everything I want to say in 40 minutes. And then pass on to Robert. He's going to cover what he wants to cover in his 40 minutes. And Robert, I want you to introduce yourself, just to say hello to everyone.
Okay. Hello, I'm Robert Greenlee. Those of you who don't know me, I've kind of been, I don't know, in this flat Earth debate community for, I guess I'm losing track of the years, more than 5 years now. We kind of doing this. It's kind of fun. It's kind of good intellectual debate. I think for all of us that do it, sometimes you learn things that you wouldn't normally learn. I'm also a private pilot, which means I'm not a commercial pilot. I won't try to claim anything that I'm not. I'm like, rest in peace, Bob Nodell. I'm not a commercial pilot, nor do I claim to be, but I am a private pilot with my instrument rating. But I've been a pilot for, about 20 years now. So a great deal of experience in not only being a pilot, but only getting this debate as well. So this will be fun.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Robert. So, guys, first of all, I want to shout out to Russian Vids and the DITRS, David Wise, and also Hibler. His documentary is out now, so go to Rockfin and you can pay $5. Help him out. He put a lot of work. And shout out to Dimitri in Russia for making a beautiful Gleason's map, and all my friends in New Zealand, Europe, Brazil, everybody. And I want to say something here. Just reply this message real quick. Somebody left it here. Eileen, truth fears no screenity, right, Banjo? Please unblock Critical Think, Wolf 6020, Rue Heath, and Hugh Jars. Okay, so I don't know who this Critical Think is. I have no idea. Wolfie was never, he's not blocked in my channel. I mean, he's not. Rue Heath, I like the guy. He was never blocked. And actually, we exchange emails. I really like him. I plan to invite him to the show someday. He is a really nice guy. We exchange emails. We have different point of views, but I think he's a really nice guy. I have no idea who this Hugh Jars is. So, Eileen, be, settle down, be quiet there. I won't be able to be looking at the chat because I'll be presenting. But during Robert's presentation, if I see that you haven't behaved, you're going to be kicked out. Okay. So behave, just pay attention to the presentation and, enjoy the show. All right. It's free. But don't tell me that I'm blocking these people because they are not blocked. There's no reason for them to be blocked. But they were really mean to me, making threats and everything. So it's my right to remove their comments if they leave threats towards me or my family, talk anything about my daughters. This is nasty. I don't know the guys. I don't know their families. I don't attack anybody. But these guys have no shame. They do that. So it's my right to remove those comments, So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the way I will do, I have the PowerPoints, but I don't want to be presenting the PowerPoints because it's not going to fit the whole screen. So I'm going to show only the pictures, and I'll be reading off the of my
Okay, so
iPad.
we really can discuss the format ahead of time, but I hope you're just not going to, read slides for the next 40 minutes. I think it'd be fun if you want to present a slide and we talk about it a little bit.
Oh yeah, you're welcome too, but I really want to cover everything, because this is what I've been making videos since 2016. I have a lot of emails from pilots, and it's about 80 years communicating with pilots from the US, Brazil, so that's what I had planned. And you're welcome to ask questions. But I really want to go through these slides, and then you have all your time. You can present the way you want. Okay. So first of all, I want to say that unlike Professor Dave, I do hold a master's degree. I have a master's degree in emergency management. I had studied a lot about earth sciences, everything that has to do with air, sea, oceans, and, you know, I was very close to going to get my PhD. I did enroll. I got my master's degree in the US and I enrolled to get a PhD in New Zealand. I went there, Massey University, but my wife is Japanese. She didn't want to move to New Zealand. And so I decided to just remain here. So when we do a claim, we need to back it up with facts, with evidences. So my claim is that airplanes fly over a motionless Earth. Earth is a plane and not a planet. So my whole presentation is going to be showing that airplanes do fly over a plane. Okay. So let me get started here. So Robert, you are welcome to interrupt me and ask me questions, but I really want to get this through, okay? So an airplane flies through winds from all directions, okay? You have easterly and westerly winds called crosswinds. We have up and down winds called updrafts and downdrafts, also called, different names. There should exist, compensation for curvature if your plane is flying from point A to point B, but we don't have this. The atmosphere where the airplane flies through is very active, just like the oceans is very active. So is the atmosphere. You see that we can harvest energy from this atmosphere. And to prove to you that it's as active as the ocean, I want to play this short video here. This one.
Waves are one of the most hypnotic and active parts of the ocean. These waves are actually moving energy that is transferred to the surface of the water in a location potentially far away from the location where we're actually seeing the wave now. In some parts of the world, this wave energy is harnessed and used to produce electricity for local towns or industry. Some waves, called chop or sea, are produced by winds locally, but most of the waves you see at a beach, called swell, are coming from winds in far distant storms, sometimes thousands of miles away. Tsunami are rare waves that come from a landslide or earthquake. When discussing wave formation, it is useful to distinguish between the two types of forces that cause waves: the generating force and the restoring force. The generating force is the one that pushes water up across its boundary with the air. Waves move along the boundaries between two different density medium. In the ocean, we see waves move along the ocean surface, along pycnoclines within the deeper layers, and along the sea floor. Waves that move along the pycnocline can have an impact on submarines and marine life that live along the pycnocline. Imagine being in a submarine that is built to withstand only 1,000 meters depth pressures. If it is hanging out in the pycnocline at close to that depth and a wave passes along the pycnocline, the submarine can be moved by that wave down to deeper depths without warning. It is thought that some of the submarine disasters that occurred without other explanations might have occurred because of this phenomenon.
All right, so just as you saw there, just like waves can push a submarine out of its coordinate route, the same thing, the airplane is pushed from one side to another because the atmosphere is can be extremely active, sometimes calm, sometimes active. Okay, so this is very basic for the student pilots. I do have some, Robert, we teach English, aviation English. And we do have a student pilot sometimes from Brazil and other countries. So we go over some of this stuff. So I just want to show this quick video here about some of the very basics, the primary control surface of an aircraft.
The ailerons, elevator, and rudder constitute the primary control system and are required to control an aircraft safely during flight. The exact point where you can balance the aircraft in all three dimensions is the center of the gravity of an aircraft. It's the point about which the aircraft will rotate. The three axes are named longitudinal axis, lateral axis, and vertical or normal axis. Along the length, longitudinal axis. Along the width, lateral axis. And along the height, vertical axis. The ailerons are the flight control surfaces at the outboard trailing edge of each wing and move in opposite direction from each other. The net effect? The aircraft will roll. That is to say, it will rotate about its longitudinal axis. How does the up and down movement of aileron cause the lift forces to increase or reduce? Elevator. The elevators are the flight control surfaces that are situated at the tail part of an airplane, exactly on a trailing edge of the horizontal tail, and move up and down simultaneously, unlike the ailerons. As they move up or down, which is achieved through linkages in older aircrafts and through fly-by-wire systems in modern airliners, there is a net up or down force. The aircraft will rotate nose down about its CG. In the same way, the nose can be pointed up just by moving the elevators up. Remember, all the pilot is doing by pulling on the control stick is moving the elevators up or down. Rudder. Rudder is the surface that is located at the tail part on a vertical stabilizer and can rotate side to side about its hinge axis. They are simply the elevators, turned vertical. But unlike the elevators, rudders are controlled by the rudder pedals on an aircraft, not through control stick, though the mechanisms are about the same. Quite simple, isn't it? Ailerons, elevators, and rudders, they respectively rotate the aircraft about longitudinal, lateral, and vertical axis.
All right, so we went through this. So to
Real quick, Banjo, while we're there, what that video didn't discuss was the trim tabs.
Oh yeah, I do have one coming up.
Okay,
Those are secondary, right?
hang on real quick, but just in your own words, what are the trim tabs used for?
It locks the elevator.
Not locks the elevator. Yeah, maybe a different term for it.
Trims, right? It trims the elevator to fly level.
Fly level, or maybe maintain a desired pitch.
Fly level. Fly straight and level.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go by what the flight instructors say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna
a little bit though, because you said I could ask questions.
That's it's okay.
It's only partially true, because you can use trim at all phases in flight. As I take off, I would use trim to maintain a positive climb. I could use trim to control descent. I can use trim to maintain a desired altitude. So it's not just to fly level; it's to hold the airplane in whatever desired angle of attack I would like it to be.
Yes, of course. But most of the time is used after you reach cruise altitude, and then you trim, and then you fly to your destination.
Yeah.
Okay, most of the time.
Trust me, we use trim in all phases of flight. So I just want to be clear. It's not just when
okay. All right. Okay. So so that's what the flight instructor explained, and this is to control pitch. This is what we're going to be focused on, since we're talking about curvature of the Earth. And this is what I was talking about. The airplane sometimes is lifted up because of convergent air, or sometimes the airplane is brought down because of that. We're going to cover this. All these are examples of airplanes being pushed up or down according to the winds.
But do we really need to cover this? Because this is the same whether it's on the globe or flat Earth. This is all, pretty basic knowledge that we probably don't need to go with. Can we move forward to something that's a little more pertinent to the discussion?
No. This is very important, because the aircraft does not correct for curvature. The aircraft is correcting for this stuff, this kind of stuff.
When you're ready, we'll talk about that particular piece.
Okay.
But this is just, you're showing basic stuff to a 20-year pilot.
No, I'm not showing to you. We have a presentation to 2,000 people. That's what you have to see.
129 right now.
Okay. All right. So I'm not going to talk about just to gain time. Those are the four kinds of. There are more, but indicated altitude, true altitude, absolute altitude, pressure altitude. Most of the time is used pressure altitude, but one example that I'm going to play in a few minutes, the pilot use indicated altitude. So let me go on to the next one. So here, I'm going to play this video real quick here. Very important.
reach enemy objectives, no matter where they are, is a primary function of our air forces. This function calls for skilled navigators familiar with the basic method of aerial navigation, dead reckoning. The principles involved are adaptable to any specific situation. He starts his pre-flight preparation hours before the takeoff. Daily weather maps and hourly reports give him current conditions aloft and forecast weather conditions to be expected. The final entry in the log under metro, while he is still on the ground, is for the wind. This is 20 knots from 220 degrees. The word metro indicates the source as being the meteorological office. Once in the airplane, the navigator must carefully check the 7 instruments he will use in dead reckoning. These include the magnetic periodic compass to indicate the heading of the aircraft, the drift meter, which will indicate any wind drift during flight, the remote control gauge to the automatic pilot for frequent heading corrections, and on the navigation instrument panel, the airspeed indicator, the temperature gauge, the clock, and the altimeter. After taking a drift reading, the navigator makes entries in his logbook on the second line of the position, of the time, and drift. The navigator knows that drift to the right may be caused by a wind from the northwest, or it may be caused by a southwest wind, or any wind from the left. The navigator instructs the pilot to make a double drift, which will give the navigator this information. This involves turning the airplane to the right 45 degrees for 2 minutes, then turning 90 degrees left for 2 minutes, and then returning on course. The pilot relieves the automatic pilot and turns the airplane 45 degrees to the right. He holds this heading for 2 minutes. The airplane is now turned 90 degrees to the left for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes of this leg, the pilot turns right 45 degrees, putting the airplane back on course. He then re-engages the automatic pilot. At 9:46, the destination is sighted, only 1 minute from the estimated time of arrival. The navigator who knows his job is the one who will get his airplane to any destination, including Berlin or Tokyo.
All right, very important video. This video is 25 minutes long. The navigator, he logs every movement they do, everything they do, except for curvature, because there's no such thing as curvature. And here you see that.
You
Yes.
made that point, Eddie. Can you tell me why you think they would adjust for curvature in dead reckoning?
Why not? If Earth is a ball, you have to adjust for curvature.
Well, why? Can you explain why?
Because Earth curves. Earth
Right,
curves.
It doesn't affect what direction you're going. It doesn't affect your altitude. So why do you think they would have to correct for the curvature of the Earth?
Because the Earth is flat. If the Earth is flat, that's why they are not.
I asked you, why would they have to adjust for the curvature of the Earth? Not that it's flat. You're making a claim that they would have to adjust for the curvature of the Earth, but you can't explain why.
Because if the Earth is a ball, you have to follow the curvature of the Earth.
Right.
That's,
so what do you think would happen if they didn't follow the curvature of the Earth?
They would go out to space.
All right. So you think an aircraft that's designed to fly in the atmosphere could continue to gain altitude and gain more and more and more until they fly out into space?
Yes. If Earth was a ball, that would be the case. It doesn't happen because Earth is not a ball.
So you see an aircraft that is using air-breathing engines that as you climb, I'm sure you understand, as you climb higher and higher, the air gets thinner and thinner. So how could an air-breathing aircraft, which uses air for driving the engine, for thrust, for lift across the wings, how could they possibly keep climbing in altitude if the air is getting thinner and thinner?
Well, that's what we're going to see when we cover Flight Air France 447. Uh, he stalled the plane because he actually climbed the plane. If he had kept flight straight and level on the flat Earth, that would not have happened. But
So you,
because he climbed, that he encountered thinner air and he stalled the plane.
so you
You
just
know?
you just proved my point. Is a second ago you made a claim that on the Earth, an aircraft would continue to climb as it gets up into space, but then you immediately said, "Well, this guy stalled the aircraft because you can't keep climbing because there isn't enough air." So which one is it?
No, 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 no. I don't know what you're talking about. If you fly on a ball, you have to adjust for curvature. Okay?
No,
You
no,
have
no,
to
no,
adjust for curvature.
you're diverting again. Let's go back to what
No,
you
no, no.
said. You
I'm not
said
clear what you're saying.
you said I'll clarify it for you. You said that if the Earth is a ball, an aircraft would continue to climb into space. But then you said you're going to play a video from a pilot that as he climbed higher, he stalled the aircraft because there's not enough air. So which one is it? Can the aircraft continue to climb into space or will it stall?
All right. Okay. Let me show here. Okay. I was saving this because the presentation has a sequence. Okay. But
Perfect. All
I
right.
was
Well,
going to cover
after the
this
next one,
now.
we'll discuss it.
Okay. Look. All right. This is how the atmosphere looks like. Okay.
I'm very well aware of how the atmosphere
This
looks
is
like.
how it looks like. Flat plane, okay? You have low pressure, you have high pressure, and you have these waves, all right?
Agreed.
But on a flat plane, if you go
Stay
anything
on the plane.
above that, okay? Look, these are the isobaric bars. You fly this going up
Yep.
and down.
Agreed.
Not curvature. This is not
Nothing to
curvature,
do with curvature.
okay? That's not curvature, all right?
Nope.
But, all right, on a ball, if you're continually flying with it in tab stream, straight and level, you would go to space because if Earth is a ball, you have to adjust for curvature.
Why?
That's a fact.
No, you keep making that claim, but you can't explain why.
All right, I don't understand what you're saying. Like I'm being very clear. Okay,
All right.
if Earth is
Well,
a ball, you have to
okay.
curve down.
Well, let's talk about it for a minute then, because I want to understand your thinking here so that we can clarify for the audience. Because I think it's really important. So you already understand that the higher you go, the thinner the atmosphere gets, right?
Ah, yes.
Okay. So you mentioned a little while ago different types of altitudes: pressure altitude and indicated altitude.
Right.
Um, and we talked about trim just a little bit. So in an aircraft, you said when the aircraft reaches altitude, say they're at 36,000 feet, and they want the aircraft to maintain 36,000 feet, they use trim to maintain it, right?
To fly straight and level.
Yeah, okay. So when they trim out the aircraft, are they trimming it to have it match the altimeter? Or are they trimming it to maintain the pressure altitude that the aircraft happened to be at that particular altitude?
Okay, and that's why they fly like this, Robert. Look, I
That's not what I asked. I'll try again. When they're trimming out the aircraft, say I get up to 36,000 feet and I trim the aircraft to the point where I can let go and it's going to maintain 36,000 feet. Am I trimming it? Is that trim tied to the altimeter to say stay at 36,000 feet? Or is the trimming the aircraft to maintain the pressure altitude, whatever the isobaric layer is at that point in space?
so this aircraft is maintaining pressure altitude. It's flying straight and level,
Uh-huh.
straight and level of a flat Earth, and you can see the up and down because it's flying according to the air pressure.
All right, good.
Okay.
All right.
Now,
So all right. So hang on. So if I know the audience can't see me right now, but if I'm flying at 36,000 feet, say over Los Angeles, and I'm going to take away weather for a moment because weather changes a lot of things. But if I'm flying at 36,000 feet over Los Angeles, and I'm flying at 36,000 feet over New York City, is the pressure the same or is it different at 36,000 feet above both those locations?
it depends on the temperature.
No. Let's ignore weather because weather changes a lot of things. Let's say there's no weather, no, there's exact same temperatures. We're basically going to go standard pressure. So is the air pressure at 36,000 feet different in those two places, or is it exactly the same?
No, it should be the same.
All right.
If I understand correctly what you're saying, okay?
Okay.
It,
All right, hang
it,
on.
if I understand correctly,
Go to
if
another picture. Hang on.
temperature is the same, it should be the same height. That's what
Okay.
you mean,
All
right?
right. Okay. So as you're flying from LA to New York, and again, we're taking away weather and temperature because we're going to stick with standard temperatures. The air pressure at 36,000 feet is going to stay the same all the way from LA to New York. Yes or no?
Yeah. But there is a problem. They were not flying. These guys that I'm showing here, they were not flying with based on air pressure. They were not flying based on air pressure.
What were they
Okay,
flying based on?
they were based on let me see here, indicated altitude.
Okay, so
Okay,
you were talking about dead reckoning there, and their indicated
yeah.
altitude. Okay, hang on. Let's finish up. So, what is indicated altitude, and what is it based off of?
All right. Okay. You're trying to throw me off here. Okay.
No. I'm asking you. You're making a claim that they were flying off indicated altitude. What is
No, I'm
indicated
not making a claim. The video is 25 minutes long. Okay,
Yes, but
they
you
were
don't.
flying indicated
Okay,
altitude.
okay, but you don't know what indicated altitude is, do you?
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Let's look here. I have everything
Can
here
you not
prepared
answer without going to another slide or another video?
because I'm making my presentation. You know.
Well, but
So
you still
there's
have
a
to ask
sequence.
questions along the way. I
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
think that you've done this presentation enough that you would just be, oh, I know what that is because I've done this, 100 times.
No. Okay. Let me go here to the slide. Okay. Uh, right here. Indicated altitude is the altitude shown on the altimeter. All right. But okay, since let's go ahead and look at this.
Do you happen to have a picture of an altimeter you could bring up?
Yeah. I'm gonna show right now. Let's go ahead and do this. I'm gonna have to play this too. Okay, let's watch.
Unfortunately, we do not always find the same density at the same height. The pressure pattern is continually changing. The pressure layers rise and fall according to the amount of atmosphere above them. An increase in the amount produces a dip. A decrease in pressure causes the layers to move upward. Horizontal movement of our instrument through this atmosphere causes a change in pressure readings. Notice that the height of the instrument is constant. Only the pressure layers are varying. Let us now hold the instrument at a constant pressure of 850 millibars. Since we are now following the pressure layers, we obtain a series of height readings. To convert the instrument to a height indicator, we must decide which height is to go on the scale.
And this one.
This is the altimeter used to measure air pressure and height above the ground. The higher the altitude is, the lower the air pressure will be regardless if one live on a ball or on a flat earth. Once the pilot reaches the desired altitude, the tabs lock the elevators, trim, and the aircraft will fly straight and level to its destination. On a ball earth, the elevators cannot be trimmed due to the fact that the aircraft has to keep on pitching the nose of the airplane down due to the supposed curvature of the earth. On the flat earth, there's no constant pitching down the nose of the aircraft. It also matches reality. When flying dead reckoning, no such adjustments for curvature of the earth have ever been recorded in 120 years of aviation.
All right, so let's stop there for a second. Keep the altimeter on the screen, and I would appreciate it if you wouldn't mute me.
Okay.
All right, so zoom back in on the altimeter.
Hold on. Let me find the slide here because I said I can't find it right now. Don't know where it is.
Just
Okay,
go back to
but
the video you played and kind of stop at the end of it.
okay, hold on. Okay, I think it's this one. Right here?
Yeah, let's go to the end of that video and show the picture of the altimeter.
This?
Yep, right there. Okay. So that little window on the right side of the altimeter, do you know what that's for?
This one right here?
Yeah, so look at the altimeter. On the right side of the altimeter, there's a little window there. So right now,
Yeah, yeah. Is that the millibars?
Yep. So what's that for?
To indicate the millibars, the measures the pressure.
No, so what that is an adjustment for when we take off and when we're flying along, we adjust that Colesman window to whatever the air pressure is down at the surface. So as we're taking off, we'll set that. As we're flying along, air traffic control will give us adjustments for it. And that's to adjust the altimeter for the varying air pressure that you talked about a minute ago. So when you talk about pressure altitude, when we're flying above, I know it's different around the world, but in the US, we're flying along at 18,000 feet. As soon as you get above 18,000 feet, you set that to 29.92. So every aircraft set that to be exactly the same. Any reason why they would do that?
Because they are flying based on the air pressure.
Yeah, so what would happen if I set mine at 29.92 and another aircraft maybe set theirs at 28.92?
You're going to fly higher.
Exactly. So you can see if we're flying along at jet levels and we each are using different altimeter settings, that could be dangerous because I'm supposed to be flying at 30,000 feet. The other aircraft's supposed to be at 31,000 feet, but he's got his altimeter wrong, and now we're both flying at 30,000 feet. We're going to crash together. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. All right. So we use that altimeter setting to adjust for the variance in air pressure. So that's perfectly fine. Again, that works exactly the same on globe or flat Earth. There's going to be variance.
It works perfectly on the flat Earth. Same rules.
Okay, you can keep saying that, but it doesn't matter. It works on both the globe and flat Earth. Let's just get past that. So let's go back to the example a second ago. We're still talking about air pressure. If I'm at the air pressure at 36,000 feet, ignoring weather variances, if it's exactly the same, here we take our little, there we go. There's a little bit of lag. Here we go. Okay, so if the air pressure at 36,000 feet is the same here and here and here and here and here, and the aircraft is trimmed to maintain that pressure altitude, what's going to happen is it's going around the Earth.
I understand what you're saying, okay, because it's following air pressure, but they don't fly always based on air pressure.
Actually, for altitude, it's almost solely based on air pressure.
But not always, and not all aircrafts are like that, And actually, well, these guys, they were flying based on pressure.
All that video was talking about was dead reckoning, which is a whole different. That's where I'm trying to get from location A to location B because I know my crosswinds, I know different waypoints I want to hit. That really didn't have anything with the altitude. They were using air pressure to maintain their altitude.
No. The video is 25 minutes long. He logged
air pressure to decide their altitude. Every single one.
Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and continue this. Okay. Let me go back here to the slides. So, all right. So that's where I was right here. So as we see, in this case, he had to adjust for the winds coming from northwest, and he flew 2 minutes to the right, and then 2 minutes to the left, and then another 2 minutes, just 1 minute, I guess, just to go back to his route. Okay, so back in 2018, 19, Wolf 62, he recorded a video showing, proving that the automatic pilot was making corrections for the Coriolis effect. Okay, and this is when everything started between him and me, because I asked him a couple questions and he became extremely combative towards me. Okay, so let me go ahead and play his video right here.
And the third point we're going to look at is how aircraft adjust for Coriolis. In this video, the Coriolis effect is no problem for aircraft. I show the aircraft correcting for a very strong crosswind. 140 knots of crosswind, which is causing 19 degrees of drift. The ground track is 203 degrees. The aircraft heading is 221 degrees. It is compensating easily for a 140 knot crosswind.
All right, so back then I made a video, and which I'm going to play over here. We have all those crosswinds going now, and as we saw on the Dead Reckoning video, it was correcting for wind. So there's no such thing as correcting for Coriolis effect. All those corrections were made because of the winds, crosswinds. So I asked Wolfie, where was if the autopilot was compensating, and the numbers were right here. And he said that you could even print all the corrections, send it to an email and print, say, where are the corrections for the curvature? When is the autopilot correcting for the curvature of the Earth, So he gave some numbers, really, really weird. So basically, the flights from Honolulu to Sydney, which takes 10 hours and 45 minutes, he provided like 50 minutes of compensation for the so-called curvature, and for compensation, not for curvature. And those 50 minutes was divided between plus and minuses, plus meaning ascending, and minus meaning descending. And 54% of that correction time, he was ascending and not descending, okay? Which means the ascending was greater than descending, all right? So on a flight from Honolulu to Sydney, the autopilot should have registered, according to him, that the autopilot corrects for, the Coriolis effect and all these corrections. And I asked, where are the corrections for the curvature of the Earth? So obviously, these corrections were not made because of any curvature of the Earth. It was just correcting for the downdrafts or updrafts, or the pressure, low pressure, high pressure.
Right,
On the ball.
Okay, hang on. All right, let me a follow-up question. So if an aircraft, or let's go something simpler, if you have a sniper shooting a bullet from a north location, shooting it south, say the target's 3 miles away, how much will the shooter have to make a correction for Coriolis?
Shooters don't make correction for Coriolis
No,
effect.
that's not what I asked. Hypothetically,
they do. No, they don't do it. They do it for winds, but not for Coriolis.
Yeah, hypothetically, if they made a correction for Coriolis, how much would it be?
They don't make correction for Coriolis.
Okay, again, hypothetically, just answer the question. Hypothetically, how much would it be?
They don't make corrections for Coriolis.
Right, I'm going to answer for you since you won't answer. You're talking about a matter of inches over several miles away. So when we talk about, God, are we correcting for Coriolis? It's like this massive force that's going to push the airplane sideways. It's like, no, over a matter of miles, you are talking about inches, where if I have a 10-knot crosswind over those same manner of miles, it could put me hundreds of feet off course. So why would I care about something that's doing inches when I'm already correcting for winds, which can affect me by tens or hundreds of miles? It's insignificant. We don't care because it's such a tiny little bit that we don't care. It's not affecting the aircraft that much. That's your answer right there. I'm not going to speak for Woofy. That's my answer. Coriolis, while it exists, is insignificant to aircraft navigation because it's so tiny.
All right, so Coriolis does not exist.
Than we ever would do for Coriolis.
All right, so let's see what this sniper says.
Oh, the lies we are told and believe because we fail to recognize them by using our own logic and critical thinking. I'm a retired Navy SEAL, sniper, scout sniper, and scout sniper instructor. I fancied myself at a time as being one of the best snipers in the world, certainly one of the best scout snipers in the world, which includes more than shooting but also skillcraft. Some others would agree. The Coriolis effect is bullshit. The theory is that with the Earth spinning on its axis in a direction of east to west, you would have to compensate for the spin of the Earth when shooting in a westerly or easterly direction. When the bullet would reach the target would either have risen or have dropped based on the spin of the Earth. Shooting north and south would be no difference. It wouldn't have an effect. But on a mission, if that were true, I would have to compensate at varying degrees, whether shooting between north and south, or correction, north and east, east and south, south and west, or west to north. Never once did I compensate for the Coriolis effect. And we were driving nails, or at least hitting a man-sized target in the kill zone at 1,800 yards consistently every time. Along with other lies told about our universe and the nature of it, the Coriolis effect is total BS. Certainly, a bullet drops when at distance dramatically because the velocity is decreasing. But as far as the spin of the Earth goes, no effect.
All right, so we just wasted another 2 minutes for something that, whether you believe it or not, is insignificant to flight. So can we kind of keep moving on to something that's worthwhile?
No, I'm making my presentation, so let me go ahead and complete this. This is all related to the shape of the Earth. I'm telling you, if you're not compensating for shooting, you're not compensating Coriolis effect for flying. Okay?
I already told you why. Let's move on.
All right. So we had a little bit of a disagreement on the Air France flight 447. This flight, very interesting. It was a flight from Rio to Paris. Actually, when you first sent me a message, my sister was in France. She had just taken the flight. I have a niece living in Zurich, Switzerland. So they fly to France, Paris, and they go by train to Zurich. Okay. So that's why I had a special interest, because they've done that route for a long time. And this was a first officer mistake. He ascended the aircraft because there was a storm and there was some more turbulence ahead. So we did have some disagreement here. You said that the Air France 447 was a case of several instruments stopped working properly in the dark, and they failed to use basic airmanship skills to prevent the stall.
Yeah.
But the problem is they were flying right here. That's where they were flying. There is no GPS in this region here. We have only covers this side of Brazil, and here in Dakar, Africa, they were flying with no GPS. The autopilot had disengaged. They were flying basically manual, but, okay, this was not a flight that was doomed. The captain, they were flying manually, okay? And the captain, was confident enough. He went to sleep. He left the first officer. And what did the first officer do? He decided to ascend the aircraft, and that's when he stalled the plane, okay? They were flying manually. And so if he was flying manually, the plane did not install because he failed to adjust for the curvature of the Earth, okay? He manually ascended the aircraft, and that's why he installed, okay? He went to this area right here where the air was thinner, right? That's what happened. He didn't fail to adjust for the curvature of the Earth.
I'm laughing because it has absolutely nothing to do with the curvature of the Earth. The aircraft sensors had multiple sensor failures, so he wasn't getting accurate data what the aircraft was doing. He was getting warnings that the aircraft was overspeeding, so he tried to pull back and stalled the aircraft instead. It doesn't matter what the shape of the Earth is. You're absolutely right. He had poor airmanship. The aircraft stalled. He could have easily corrected it just by letting the nose drop. He could have heard what was happening in the aircraft and use his basic airmanship to recover from the stall and fly away. But instead, he kept pulling back and stalled the aircraft all the way down into the ocean. So nothing to do with the shape of the Earth at all.
Of course it does, because if they were flying all manually, and they never in their report said, "Well, he failed to adjust the could and kept flying," and no,
he kept climbing altitude. Nothing to do with the shape of the Earth. Next one. It had nothing to do with the shape of the Earth. It would happen. The only difference is on flat Earth you wouldn't have a pressure gradient, but there is a pressure.
No,
gradient.
why not? We do.
That's it.
Of course we do.
Yeah.
Of course we do.
Okay, let me put it this way: is there a pressure gradient on the globe?
No. We do have pressure
Answer
gradient.
the question, please. It's a simple question. Is there a pressure gradient on the globe?
There is a pressure gradient in the atmosphere.
So he climbed the aircraft into lower air on the globe or flat Earth, doesn't matter. He climbed the aircraft in the thinner air because there was a pressure gradient, stalled the aircraft, and crashed it. Does that have anything to do with flat Earth or the globe?
No. Okay,
No, you're
look.
right. Nothing to do with flat Earth or the globe.
Look, this is Air France flight 447. Okay, in your view, if he installed the plane because he kept flying straight and level, but that's not the case.
He pulled the controls back.
This is what happened right here.
No, he stalled the aircraft because he pulled the controls back.
All right, so let's check.
He pulled back, which made the aircraft climb into thinner air and it stalled.
Okay, let's check. Let's see. Okay, let's check that.
There's nothing to do with the shape of the Earth, and your example is we're wasting time talking about something that has.
No, we're not wasting time. Why are we wasting time? We're having a discussion. This is what we are doing.
You're wasting.
So let's no. So let's see what happened. Okay.
It's one of the most notable air disasters of the 21st century. A modern passenger airliner with a remarkable safety record simply vanished over the Atlantic Ocean in June 2009. The overnight flight from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil to Paris shook the aviation world. Questions would remain unanswered for years after the accident as the wreckage laid at the bottom of the ocean. When the plane was found and the black boxes revealed the details of what was going on in the cockpit during the final minutes of the flight, investigators were left baffled by how preventable this accident turned out to be, and it all came down to the actions of one man in the flight deck. At 7:29 in the evening, Flight 447 left Rio de Janeiro on what should have been a routine transatlantic crossing. At 1:30 a.m., Flight 447 is cruising at flight level 350, 35,000 feet. The flight up till this point has been completely normal. There is no radar coverage out here, and having now left the Brazilian airspace, the plane will now enter a radar dead zone as it leaves the local radar screens in Brazil. The plane now can no longer be tracked on radar until they come into view with air traffic control in Dakar, Senegal on the African continent. At just after 2 a.m., a briefing was conducted in the flight deck with the three pilots before Captain Dubois left for the crew resting area. In this briefing, it was stated that there was moderate turbulence in the area and that at the moment, the plane could not really climb to a higher altitude because the temperature was falling much more slowly than forecast. It was also noted that they couldn't make communication with Dakar at the moment. Captain Dubois had then also appointed First Officer Bonin as the one flying the plane, the least experienced member of the flight crew. Captain Marc Dubois then left his post and went to bed. At 2:06, a flight attendant on board was called to the flight deck. The pilots informed them of more potential turbulence ahead and that they would be called again once they are clear of the turbulent area. The large fluctuations of airspeed had caused the autopilot to disconnect at 2:10. The plane transfers power from the autopilot to the pilot's control input. On Airbus aircraft, the primary flight input is called the side stick. Aside from the pitot tubes temporarily providing incorrect readings, of which normal operation of this system would soon resume, there was nothing wrong with the plane. All the pilots needed to do was maintain steady flight, which can be easily done on manual flight controls, until the plane had cleared the turbulent airspace and the airspeed readings returned to normal so the autopilot could be re-engaged. It was what happened next which really put the plane in severe danger. For an unknown reason, First Officer and pilot flying Pierre Cedric Bonin had pulled back on his side stick, putting the plane into a climb.
It's difficult to explain that. I just don't know why he did that.
The Airbus A330 had pitched up to over 10 degrees nose up and climbing at thousands of feet per minute. The actual airspeed began to drop, as Flight 447 approached 38,000 feet, 3,000 feet higher than their assigned altitude. At 2:11, the stall warning sounds in the flight deck, and First Officer Bonin is still pulling back on his side stick, even when now the plane's pitot tubes have begun providing correct airspeed information again. The aircraft begins to drop as it enters an aerodynamic stall. Captain Marc Dubois was summoned back to the cockpit where the pilots flying informed them that they have lost control of the aircraft. Flight 447 is descending extremely quickly at a rate of over 10,000 feet per minute. At 2:13 and 40 seconds, there was a moment of realization from Captain Marc Dubois, as his first officer had said, "I've had the stick back the whole time." It was at this moment that Captain Dubois realized what had happened, and David Robert, who was sitting in the left seat, demands the controls from First Officer Bonin, and the plane's nose is finally pushed forward with 6,000 feet left and still falling. He can get the nose of the plane to go down, but cannot gain enough speed to pull the plane out of the stall. With just 2,000 feet of altitude left, the ground proximity warning system in the cockpit sounds. The plane was about to crash. At 2:14 and 27 seconds, the plane's onboard flight recorders had stopped functioning. To the investigators which had heard the recordings, in the final moments before the crash, the pilots had appeared to have given up. After 4 minutes trying to understand what was happening with the plane, the Airbus A330 crashes into the Atlantic Ocean, killing 228 people.
All right, so your video just basically said exactly what I said a minute ago. The co-pilot was doing the wrong thing. He kept pulling back on the control stick, causing the aircraft to climb into thinner air, dropping his airspeed until it stalled. Exactly what I said.
Well, actually, on the email here, you didn't say anything like that. You just disagree with me. When I told you it was pilot error.
Ask your audience if that's what I said, and I bet most people are going to agree. That's exactly what I said.
No. Here's a message here. You disagree with me. You say it was, but it's okay. Let's move on.
Right,
And so for the people who are watching, which is about 200 people, you saw the presentation. You decided whether this guy, they were flying manually, no GPS. They were flying in the dark. The automatic pilot was disengaged. And, which one matches more reality, okay? The pilot, the first officer climbed and stalled the plane on a flat earth. Or, on the ball, all he had to do was failing to adjust for the curvature of the earth to stall the plane, all right? That's not the case, okay?
Right,
this is not what happened.
Keep arguing about this one all night. It has
Okay.
nothing to do with the shape of the earth. Let's move on to your next.
Oh, of course, it has everything to do with the shape of the earth.
Come on,
Everything to do with the shape of the earth, okay? All right, so let me go back here. All right. So that's where they were flying.
They were out of radar coverage, not GPS coverage. GPS worked just fine out there. But they were looking at.
You heard no GPS. You heard the. I don't want to play the.
Out of radar range, not GPS range.
I don't want to play the video again. You heard it well. No GPS.
Out of radar range, not GPS range.
I'm gonna play again. I'm gonna play the video again.
No, keep going.
No GPS. Okay.
Next one.
No GPS. All right. Look. All right. This map here shows clearly they were flying on an area with no GPS coverage. Okay.
No.
All right.
You put that in there, not them.
Oh, do you want me to play the video again?
But where did that map come from? Who made that illustration? It wasn't the aircraft investigator.
Did you watch the video?
Okay. Who made that map? Was it the aircraft?
Did you watch the video? The video is exactly, this map is exactly what shows in the video.
No. Who made that video?
Hi. Oh, who made the video?
Huh?
Who made the video?
Correct.
There are plenty of documentaries on the 447.
No, that's not what I asked. Who made the video you played?
I'll send you the link. It's on YouTube.
You're not answering the question. Why do you refuse to answer the question? Who made the video?
Which video that I played?
The one you just played, yeah.
It's on the internet. It's on YouTube. It's a history about you saw there the hero of the Hudson River, the pilot. It's a documentary. It's like 45 minutes.
Did Sullenberger say they were at a GPS
All right,
radar?
I'm gonna play the video again. Okay, I didn't want to play it. It's 4 minutes long. But...
The video said radar, not GPS.
All right, so let's go to play the video again. Watch it. Okay, let's watch it again.
It's one of the most notable air disasters of the 21st century. A modern passenger airliner with a remarkable safety record simply vanished over the Atlantic Ocean in June 2009. The overnight flight from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil to Paris shook the aviation world. Questions would remain unanswered for years after the accident as the wreckage laid at the bottom of the ocean. When the plane was found and the black boxes revealed the details of what was going on in the cockpit during the final minutes of the flight, investigators were left baffled by how preventable this accident turned out to be, and it all came down to the actions of one man in the flight deck. At 7:29 in the evening, Flight 447 left Rio de Janeiro on what should have been a routine transatlantic crossing. At 1:30 a.m., Flight 447 is cruising at flight level 350, 35,000 feet. The flight up till this point has been completely normal. There is no radar coverage out here, and having now left the Brazilian airspace, the plane will now enter a radar dead zone as it leaves the local radar screens in Brazil. The plane now can no longer be tracked on radar until they come into view with air traffic control in Dakar, Senegal on the African continent. At just after 2 a.m., a briefing was conducted in the
All right.
All right. Did you hear it when they said radar?
Yeah.
All right. Did you hear them say GPS?
No.
All right. Did you admit that they said radar, or did they say GPS?
No, in this video he said no radar. You're right.
Okay. All right. Let's move on.
Okay. So it's up to the viewer, okay, to decide whether he made a mistake flying a flat Earth and going up, as the video explained, or on the ball Earth that he failed to adjust for the curvature of the Earth. Okay. So let's go ahead and I don't want to go to this one yet, quite yet. So we were talking about the go back here. So right here. So we have these bars, okay? Those are the isobaric bars. And I do have one video for this one. Let's go ahead and watch it.
These are all things that are understood in both models here. This
is
something more interesting.
Okay.
An isobar is a line on a map that shows a meteorologist what the pressure is at the surface of the Earth. They are lines that connect equal points of pressure. But first, what is atmospheric pressure? It's basically the force of the atmosphere on the surface of the Earth. Although it's a little simplistic, you can think of it as the weight of the air. But atmospheric pressure varies from place to place on the surface for a number of reasons. Pressure and temperature are often tied together. In general, warm air tends to rise. If the ground is warm in an area, it causes the air to rise, and this creates low pressure. The opposite is true with cold air. Cold air tends to sink, and this leads to high pressure. One way to think about an isobar map is like it's showing elevation. A high pressure. Low pressure. A high pressure. Low pressure. A high pressure. Low pressure.
All right, so this has to do with the fact that many people claim that the airplane adjusts, when they are adjusting for the air pressure, is the curvature of the Earth, okay? Which it's not the case, all right? It goes up and down according to the air pressure. On the ball Earth, it should be continuously down. It should, it should be continuously going down because of the so-called curvature of the Earth. But as we observe here, it works just fine on the flat Earth. And we have the same case, all right? And in the case of the Air France, 447, the pilot, the first officer, made a mistake climbing the aircraft and stalling, which on the globe, all he had to do is failing to adjust for the curvature. So those are arguments that I hear, I've heard from pilots throughout these 7-8 years that I've been making videos. Some pilots tell me that gravity adjusts the curvature, the nose down, pitches down the nose of the aircraft. Others say GPS, others say the IRS system, others say the atmosphere. So I've heard several pilots telling me different reasons. I don't know which one you, Robert, picks from these 6 figures here, but I've heard different versions on what causes the plane to dip down the nose of the plane. Okay, that's the pilot does it, gravity does it, GPS. I don't know where you stand on this, but I found it very interesting. For example, in this drawing here, some people think that the aircraft flies straight and then drops the nose of the plane and then drops, and this is how the aircraft flies. Okay, and actually, I have this guy here. He just went on a debate. Let's
Got
look.
it. Thank you so much. From T Baggins for $10. How do airplanes fly hundreds of miles straight forward without consistently and routinely dipping their noses down to compensate for the curvature of the Earth?
Okay, so planes fly at planes when they take off. They configure their wings and the various flaps that they've got so that they will stay at an equal pressure. If they go above that pressure, they lose lift and they sink back.
Sink back? How in the airplane's design is that supposed to happen?
They're following an isobaric altitude. So they are configured so that automatically, if they go above the isobar, they'll lose lift and they'll just drop back onto the isobar.
Drop back? Where in the airplane's design is that supposed to happen?
All right, so let's stop there for a second. Let me explain.
Okay.
Because he's right. So we talked about the aircraft being trimmed for that certain pressure altitude. Let me give it a training thing that we did when I was learning how to fly. You'd get up to your cruising altitude, you set your altimeter or you set your trim to maintain, let's say, 8,000 feet. And you purposely, once the aircraft is trimmed and it's maintaining that pressure altitude, you purposely push the nose forward and drop a couple hundred feet. And you let go. The aircraft, because it was trimmed for 8,000 feet, will naturally, so now you've dropped the nose, you've forced it down, you've sent it in the thicker air, it's naturally going to come back up to 8,000 feet because that's what it was trimmed for. If I do the opposite, if I pull back on the yoke and I go up 100 feet and I let go, the aircraft is going to naturally come back to where it was trimmed for. That's what he's talking about. If an airliner is flying along and is trimmed for that particular altitude, say they hit a burst of turbulence that knocks them up 50 feet, it's going to come back to the altitude it was trimmed for. That's what he's talking about.
Exactly, but this is the problem. Like when you're not flying on pressure, and you have to manually to adjust for the so-called curvature of the Earth. Okay, so it works for one, it doesn't work for the other.
We always fly by pressure.
No, not always.
Hey, Benjo, are you a pilot?
No, I'm not a pilot.
Okay. Do you have any aviation experience?
Yes, I do, but I'm not a pilot, and I have been talking to pilots for 8 years on both sides. Okay, what I'm saying.
I've not only been a pilot for 20 years. I worked for Jeppesen, which is an aviation company, which means I worked with hundreds of pilots. You're time and time again, you're making claims without any practical experience yourself of how it actually works. I just explained to you how the aircraft adjusts to maintain that pressure altitude, and your answer is nuh-uh.
No, wait a minute.
Practical experience yourself.
No, what I'm saying, okay.
If you don't have practical experience to say this is why you're wrong and this is why, you can't just say nuh-uh because it's flat or it's a globe. You need to have justification to say this is why you're wrong, Rob, because of this, and you're not. You're just saying nuh-uh. No,
listen, okay. I just showed you you don't always fly with pressure indicated. Okay, you have other types of flying. Okay, and when you're flying other types of flying, you don't adjust for curvature. Right? You don't. And also, the isobaric bars work on the flat Earth. Okay, the adjustments. It works fine. Earth is not a ball. You don't have to do this. That's why I was.
Move on to your next claim. Hurry up, we're running out of time.
All right, so Okay, so let me see this one here. All right. So on the ball, you have to, if you're not flying at pressure, you have to be constantly adjusting for this curvature.
Trim
Okay.
does that. Let's move on. Trim is the adjustment.
All right. So as I said here, many people claim different ones. I don't know which one you hear.
I already
Okay.
explained it. Come on, let's move on.
All right. But some people who claim the IRS does it, the initial reference system, it's basically GPS, right? IRS is the GPS.
Actually, the INS is quite different than GPS, but that's not my expertise. You want to talk to somebody like Woofy who flies jets, but I am very familiar with GPS.
Okay, so GPS basically, the term GPS comes from GP, which came from celestial navigation, which really means geographic position, right? So GPS really means the geographical positional system. That's the whole thing.
What's your official source for that? Because if you look at every single official source, that's not what they say it is.
This is, because they have to adapt for the globe. So they change, the globe. The problem with the globe is that they change meaning of words. They change meaning of things over the years to adapt to the globe. Everything has to adapt to the globe.
GPS has always been global positioning system. You made up this new term, not...
No, I didn't. It's a GP. It's a geographical positional system. Just go back to the videos that are, back from the 1950s and 60s.
Any official source for the GPS system that says that's what it's called.
All right, so let me just go ahead and...
Oh God, another video. Do you have anything where you're able to answer a question without going to a
No, video? Listen, I presented a presentation. I have prepared a presentation here.
You can't discuss, there's a flat earther called Courtney Jansen. We call him the meme queen because that's all he has is memes, but he can't actually discuss any of them. And that's kind of what you're doing is I ask you details of questions about the material you're presenting and you can't answer.
I don't quite understand what you're saying, but GPS comes from geographical position and system.
Show me a reference. Show me the official reference.
Right. Okay. Do you know what this thing here is? Do you know what this is? Universal Planisphere Complete Guidance and Computer System.
Yeah.
You know what this thing?
Yeah. Luckily, we don't use Loran much anymore.
No, this thing here. Do you know?
It's time, but I never used it, so no, I can't speak to it because it's pretty old technology.
Okay. All right. Let me explain. This one right.
It's not the same as GPS. They're totally different systems.
No. Wait, we're gonna get there.
If you want to patent something that includes parts that were invented by someone else, you must cite the patent number for each of those parts. You can't put a new patent on someone else's invention. You can only patent your own bits. When you apply for a patent, your application must cite the patent numbers for any part of your design that was made by someone else. If you run a search on the internet using Alex Gleason's patent number, you'll find that there are 3 patents that use his map, all granted in the 1970s for a device called a Universal Planisphere Complete Guidance and Computer System that was invented by one William A. Eisenhower. In the same way that the flat, circular world has been wrapped around a ball to provide us with a model for the globe, the skies have also been portrayed as a sphere that surrounds the globe, and in the same way that a globe can be shown as a flat, circular map, so too can the skies. The sky, and specifically the sun, the moon and the stars, have long been used in navigation to tell us exactly where we are on the surface of the Earth. If we know exactly where the sun, moon and stars are on any date and time, it's fairly easy to establish your exact position on the face of the Earth. They provide us with a reference system. In the same way that the ground can be mapped as a planisphere, so too can the skies, and when the two are used together, they provide an extremely reliable indicator of exactly where you are on the face of the Earth. The sun, the moon, and the stars all follow very precise patterns in the sky. And if you know where they are at any point in time, they can be used to calculate exactly where you are. An ephemeris is a detailed set of tables from which a navigator can calculate their position anywhere on the Earth. At night, the stars provide so much more information, but the calculations are still subject to mistakes. So in 1975, Mr. William Eisenhower patented his Universal Planisphere Complete Guidance and Computer System. It looks rather complicated, so let's simplify it a little. Essentially, it's a series of disks that are riveted together so they can rotate over each other. The principal disks show the sun and the moon positions in the sky, and 2 disks show the principal stars and constellations in the night sky. Another disk shows the surface of the Earth and the principal land masses. If you look closely, you'll recognise the land masses match those that are shown on the familiar AE map. In other words, the AE map and its relative proportions are considered to be accurate enough for the purposes of world navigation. Despite this only having been invented in the 1970s, this navigation tool became obsolete when GPS was rolled out in the 1990s. For all practical purposes, it needs only to show the coastlines of the world continents. Remember, ships stop when they reach the land. For anyone who takes a moment to look at the patent application, you'll read that it can be used to show which lights in the sky are above which points on the Earth, and conversely, which points on the Earth are below the various lights in the sky. It shows what the sky looks like from the ground. So, in closing, the flat, circular map of the world seems to have a fairly reliable track record for the purposes of navigation around the world when coupled with the lights that we all see in the sky.
Right, only one question on that. What does
Yeah.
that relate to GPS?
GPS, your global positional system or geographical positional system.
How does that relate to the video you just played?
Because the IRS, it's basically based on the stars, navigation by stars.
Yeah, but that's got nothing to do with GPS. I'm trying to understand your correlation. You played the video, we were talking about GPS. What does that have to do with that video?
Because GPS, your position on the globe, but it's the same thing on the flat Earth. Is your geographical positional system. Okay, you can locate a person or an aircraft on a flat Earth. Okay, it doesn't have to be a globe. And GPS positional system comes from geographical positional system. They just changed the word geographical to globe.
Okay, can you tell me how GPS tells you your location?
By several means, antennas, there are several means. Drones,
is
balloons.
It triangulation? Is it trilateration? I mean, how does it work? Give me
Triangulation. It works with triangulation.
You think it's triangulation?
Yeah.
Can you maybe, since you've got control of the screen right now, can you Google how does GPS work and show us?
No, not because we are, you still have to present your stuff. It's 11:16 now.
Okay.
I have like
when we get to my part.
Okay, I have like a couple slides left, and that's it. Right. Okay, so positional system works on the flat Earth just as fine. It doesn't have to be a globe. It can be, all this stuff can work on the flat Earth. And the last one that I want to talk about, it's about projections. Okay, so you mentioned for flight in one of our messages, but basically, it's right here. So we do have the flat Earth map. Okay, this is the flat Earth map. If I draw a flight path right here, and then you convert that flight to a globe, it's going to look similar. So basically, that's what they do with these applications. Okay, they just convert, the route into a ball, and some of them will look similar, some of them will not look similar, but it's all based on the flat Earth map. All right. So, and this this one in particular, which is the for flight, they use this web Mercator projection. Okay, and so I have two more videos to play, and then that's it. And then you're gonna go ahead and present your part. Okay, so this web Mercator, where is it? Right here.
Web Mercator, Google Web Mercator, Spherical Mercator, WGS84 Web Mercator or WGS84 Pseudo Mercator is a variant of the Mercator map projection and is the de facto standard for web mapping applications. It rose to prominence when Google Maps adopted it in 2005. It is used by virtually all major online map providers, including Google Maps, Carto, Mapbox, Bing Maps, OpenStreetMap, MapQuest, Esri, and many others. Its official EPSG identifier is EPSG 3857, although others have been used historically.
All right, so basically they wrap these, flat maps around the ball, and that's why, you can say, well, we work on a ball, but again, we don't have curvature, we don't have Coriolis effect, nothing that proves that we are really rotating on a spinning ball. Go ahead, you want to share screen? You want to do anything?
Yep. All right, so I'm just going to see, I'll share out. Okay.
While I have like 2,000 comments and I haven't been able to look at them.
All right, we're just going to be sharing my empty screen for just a moment. So
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, something you just said a moment ago. Your last video was right that the Google Maps, a lot of the MapQuest, those are using a Web Mercator map, which is a cylindrical map projection. But ForeFlight itself is not. ForeFlight's using the WS84. Is not using a Web Mercator. That would be inaccurate, and we'll explain why in just a little bit.
All right.
But that's kind of the overall problem with the flat Earth is you don't really have an accurate map. Let's talk about it for just a second. Let's talk about your emergency landing scenarios for just a second.
Okay.
It is not just as easy of, the aircraft flying from point A to point B, and they have some type of emergency, and they find the closest airport, and they immediately, I'm going to dive bomb for that airport and land. So why do you think that would be the case that they wouldn't land at the very closest airport they can get to?
Wait a minute. I wasn't really paying attention because.
Let me bring up. Let's bring up. Give me 1 second here. Let me bring this over here. Let's bring up like one of your first ones here. So let's take a look at the China Airlines flight. So this is again, we know this is a Web Mercator projection. The theory was, let me zoom in here, that aircraft's flying from Taipei to Los Angeles. Something happens along the way, they're immediately going to put down at the very closest airfield. To say there's an island in the middle right here. What are reasons that if this was, say, a 777 aircraft, that they wouldn't just land on a little tiny island out in the middle of the Pacific? What are the different requirements that a large airliner might need to be able to put down at its first location?
Well, not really sure what I'm talking about, but if you're close to the land, you have to, if there is an airport there that, depending on the size of the aircraft, if that particular airport is able to have that aircraft landing, and they have all the emergency, all that stuff, they will land right there. Okay.
Yep.
In case they don't have, they will have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, thank you. So that's perfect. So they can't land at just any old airport. They have to land at an airport that's able to handle the weight of the aircraft. It's got long enough runways. The weather is good. If it's a medical emergency, do they have medical services there? So as we talk about emergency landings, it's not just about, I got to go put down this closest airport because I got a medical emergency. I got to go someplace that can handle the aircraft, that actually has the facilities to handle the emergency I'm dealing with. So just a real quick point on that. So the premise being, flight was from Taipei to Los Angeles. There was a very pregnant woman on board. She went into labor. They ended up landing up in Anchorage, Alaska. Your premise would be that on flat Earth, let's go bring up see if I can find your flat Earth diagram. Was it this one? No, that's not it. Sorry, I grabbed it. No, this going. So your premise was that they shouldn't, and on the globe, they should have gone to Hawaii because Hawaii would have been closer. If you kind of look at this, Hawaii is a little bit closer than Alaska, because on your flat Earth, that's pretty much what it looks like. But when we actually quit using this Webb Mercator projection map, which is inaccurate, and we actually look at it on an actual WS-84 globe model, here's the flight path from Taipei to LA. And what I did is I basically drew it, I put 3 legs, Taipei to LA to Anchorage down to Honolulu. And you can essentially see if they're somewhere along this path, Anchorage was closer than Honolulu. So when we actually use the correct map showing the actual flight path, you can actually see that Anchorage is closer to Honolulu for that flight. Now you could, get old school and grab yourself a physical globe and run a piece of string from point A to point B. But we're going to look at a couple different examples like this. So I'm going a little bit fast.
All right, so this one is just there, just as I told you. You have the same flight path on the Gleason's map, on the flat Earth map. You wrap it around the ball, and then you're gonna have some that are very similar. But again, on the ball, you have to be adjusting for curvature, Coriolis, all that stuff, which doesn't happen.
Yeah, so let's compare the differences here. So here we have your Google Maps, which they say is a Mercator projection. So the projections are going to be inherently inaccurate because it's a projection. And here's if you actually took a physical globe and ran the string from point A to point B, you would actually see exactly what I'm showing you here. And this is what we see as pilots. ForeFlight's not going to lie to us and say, think about it, if I'm flying along on ForeFlight and it tells me I'm here, but in reality, because you're telling me that's not showing me where I'm actually at, I'm going to say, I'm going to divert to Alaska, but in reality, I'm down here because you're telling me that I can't trust the actual tool that millions of pilots are using around the world because you're telling me that's inaccurate. Do you have any justification to tell me that this flight path that I'm flying from Taipei to LA is not an accurate representation of where I'm actually at?
This is the flight path on the flat Earth map. What they do, they just wrap it on a ball. That's what I'm saying to you.
Your flat Earth map, that's just bring up the flat Earth map. That's right. I'm like, so here is your flat Earth map. Oh, this is going to be fun because this thing's such a huge mess. So we got LA, Taipei, like somewhere. Let's see if we can draw a line here. Because it is a huge mess. Let's bring this over here. Let's see if they can figure out where the heck Taipei is in this thing. So obviously LA. Actually, I probably should bring up your thing. So Taipei, that's Japan. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
I can't say really well,
Okay. All right. So do you see a huge difference between this on the flat Earth map versus what's projected on the globe map?
I see a huge difference, and the problem is when people. I took this flight Tokyo to Los Angeles, and we see land. That's the problem. We see land. On your projection, you shouldn't see any land. You should be flying over the ocean the whole time. But when we fly, we see land.
Evidence of that showing you're seeing land?
I don't have it now, but we see land. Okay, and I have several people that send me messages, I just flew and, we saw land the whole time. On the bulwark, you shouldn't see land.
Right, well,
so we have this geographical.
We got a lot of stuff to cover, but.
Yeah, we do. I really need to, it's my time, it's 11:30. I need to go on for another 15 minutes if you can, rush and cover.
I'm going to start going a little faster then. Because I want to cover as much of this as we can because you used up a lot of our time.
All right. Well, I mean, my presentation was 40 minutes, and you kept asking questions.
Let's see here. So this particular one, not that one. Oops, there it is. Adobe. Here, come on. Your second scenario was this Lufthansa 543. I've only looked at a couple of these. We're not going to spend the whole time doing this.
So let me just comment here. Hold on. MC Toon is here, and he's saying, we see land is not evidence provided. come on, take the flight yourself, man. I take this flight and I talk to LA, and many people do it daily.
Yeah.
You know.
I agree. We're
So,
going to have a fun one talking about that in just a little bit.
all right.
Speaking of this air map of the world, do you think this is an accurate representation of the Earth?
This actually, this is interesting because the Mercator map, it was bad for during the Second World War. That's why they came up with so many azimuthal projections like that. And there is one feature in my book that I had to ask permission to. There is a company that auctions those old maps, and they granted me permission to put in there because it's worth a lot of money. So because the Mercator map wasn't working, the globe wasn't working, so they came up with those azimuthal projections.
All right. So is this semi-accurate or not in the basic level?
Sorry.
It's a simple
Well,
question. Is it accurate? Is it accurate or not?
hold on, let me look here because the image is really small, and I have my book here with me.
I'll zoom in a little bit more here, just to make it easier. Made it bigger. Accurate or not?
It seems like Brazil is much more to the left than on the.
Okay. Well, I mean,
a little bit different, but it seems to be okay.
Being in the right place, exactly.
Okay.
Well, we got a fundamental problem with both this and the Gleason map. And if I bring up, it's another projection, of course, but I bring this guy up. This is kind of a representation of the globe. And of course, I got Tropic of Cancer, the equator, Tropic of Capricorn. One of the really key things here is that the equator is basically the largest circumference of the Earth. Yes or no?
On the globe, yes.
On the globe, yeah. That's that the equator is the largest circumference at that point in time, right?
Right, on the globe.
Okay. So as you go north to the Tropic of Cancer, now the circumference is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. You get to the North Pole. And then as you go south, the exact same thing happens. Distances are getting smaller until you get to 0 in the South Pole. Correct?
On the globe, yes.
Yeah, okay. So let's bring up flat Earth. So here's the basic flat Earth. Again, here's the tropics. Here's the equator. As you get towards the Tropic of Cancer, it's going to get smaller and smaller until you get to the middle. As you start going outwards towards Antarctica, it's be getting larger. The circumference is getting larger, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's hang on. My Alexa keeps talking to me. Go away, Alexa. There we go. All right. So you agree that on the globe, as you go further south, the distances are going to get smaller. On flat Earth, they're going to get larger. So let's go back and take this wrong one. Let's go back to the world map because the Gleason map doesn't have a scale on it, where the air map of the world does. So as we zoom in on the air map of the world, they have a scale to estimate distances. And what you'll see, I'm zooming way in so it's easily visible here. Come on. Come here. There we go. So here's our scale. From the North Pole, it's basically 0. As we're, actually, we'll start from the equator here. So at the equator, it has the max of 692. As we're going north, 681, 650, 600, 551, 445. This is the number of miles for each 10 degree of latitude. So if the Earth was flat, you would expect as you go south of the equator, these numbers to start getting bigger. But they're not. They're getting smaller in the same amount of sequence as it does going north. So do you have any explanation why this doesn't match what the flat Earth would be?
I don't know why they put it this there, but in reality, the land masses and the distance in the south are bigger. Did you know that Australia, which is the same size as the US, stands about the same, the latitudes, and they have only 2 time zones? Did you know that there are 32 time zones south of the equator against 19?
So you're saying that this map, you don't like this map is inaccurate, even though it's in your book.
Oh yeah, it is in my book. There are many projections, including the globe, which I used to compare. I used to compare the Aleutian Islands right here where the Japanese were, okay? And they were going to take out Alaska. On the globe is completely crazy. That's why I used that map.
So let's do some comparisons. We look at Gleason's map. This is the U.S. This is Australia. I basically took it off of your high quality version. They're both took screenshots at the exact same zoom so that they're the same. So here we have the US versus Australia, but you'll notice that Australia is quite a bit wider. So they're both right about the same amount of square miles, right about 3 million. The US is a little bit larger, but Australia looks bigger than the US, doesn't it?
Exactly.
All right, but that's not what the numbers say. The numbers, it's only 2.9 million square miles in Australia, but it's over 3.1 in the US. What
I don't know. You have
is you're absolutely right.
what?
You're right. Australia and the US are fairly close in size, but Australia isn't shaped like that. If you look at the actual, I'm going to bring up another drawing here. Here we go. So what I did is I basically measured the distances of, if I took a flight from the westernmost part of Australia to the easternmost part, and then from the northernmost point to the southernmost point, it is 2,119 nautical miles. I know it's a little small, but from east to west, 2,119 nautical miles, from north to south, 1,624. So it's only about 25% less distance from north to south than from east to west. But if you look at the math on the Gleason's map, Australia is 3 times wider than its high. So any explanation to why Australia is so distorted on the Gleason's map when it's not what it's shaped like in reality?
Actually, the globe, the problem there is the globe. You don't have 90 degrees below the equator. So in order to reach the 90 degrees that you had, you stretch it down the continents to close Antarctica and make this little island on the bottom of the globe. So you had, because in reality, you only have like what, 75 degrees up to 70 degrees. In order to have 90 degrees south of the equator, you had to stretch down the continents. That's
Okay,
what you did.
You totally didn't answer my question.
No, I'm answering. I'm answering. I'm answering.
No, you didn't. I asked you, why is on the flat Earth map, why is Australia stretched so wide when in reality, looking at the actual distances from north to south, east to west, it's not stretched like that?
Now, I don't know if those are numbers given by us. I don't know if those are actual, but I do know that they only have 2 time zones in Australia, which is the same size as the US, and US has 4 time zones. So if we were on the globe closing down, we should expect to have the same. But actually, south of the equator, you have 32 time zones against 19 north of the equator. Okay, which proves that
time zones aren't absolute. If you look at a map of the US and how the time zones are mapped, it's not like this straight line. It's up to that country to say, no, we're going to divide it here. So Australia obviously chose to do something different. But again, if you look at the actual distances, I'm not making these up. These are the actual flight distances that an airplane would take from north to south, east to west, showing that it's only 25% wider than it is tall. It's totally contrary to what the flat Earth map is showing. Can you explain?
Well, as I say, those are numbers given by us. I have no means to go and check. I have plenty of friends in Australia, and they say that the size are much bigger than what they show. There is a video of a guy like 5,000 miles across Australia. There is one that says 5,000 kilometers across Australia. So who knows? I have no means to go and measure myself.
Okay, but you can do things like you can take a flight from here to here, and it's going to take, say, for example, like this one I calculated, it's going to take 4 hours and 19 minutes. You can take a flight and figure out, okay, well, I flew for this many hours at this speed, so you know what that distance is. So unless you're claiming that these actual distances used by a tool used by hundreds of pilots, thousands of pilots all over the world, are you saying that this is wrong? That the tools that pilots
I'm saying that below the equator, the distances it gets much wider than north of the equator. That's what I'm saying. Okay?
Distances are absolute. I don't care where you're at, anywhere in the world. 100 miles is 100 miles. Yes or no?
Those are the numbers given to us, Robert.
100 miles.
Those are the numbers given to us. I have no means to go there and measure.
Right.
Okay.
So are you saying that the tools that pilots use to calculate distances of a flight are wrong?
Hold on, let me just show these slides. All right, this is
a simple question. Are the tools that pilots use correct or wrong?
the tools the pilot use, they most of the time they fly in autopilot and they have to punch the destination. No, okay, but they have to fly the punch the destinations or whatever. So the global or geographical.
They know the distance for the flight. They know the direction of the flight plan they're going to go. They're not just turning it on and turn on the autopilot. Autopilot does all the work. In fact, they program the flight plan in, given all the data that I'm showing you here, and the autopilot just does what the pilot's told to do. The autopilot's not overriding the pilots. The autopilot's only doing what the pilot's told to do. So here are the actual distances, and you're saying, I don't believe it, it must be wrong. So is that what you're saying, that the tools that the pilots use to plan their flights is wrong?
What I'm saying is below the equator, the distances are much wider. Okay.
Okay, so 100 miles below the equator is different than 100 miles north of the equator?
I'm not saying that the miles is different. I'm saying the distances are greater. For example, let me show this example here. Okay. On the globe, hold on. On the globe, Cape Horn, South America, to Cape of Good Hope, okay, on the globe, 3,420 miles in theory. But this distance was measured, okay, and it happens to be 5,700 miles in fact. So the distance below the equator are much greater than, that's what I'm saying.
All
right?
So I'm gonna screenshot that, and so I can. We're not gonna have
Please,
time today.
please.
I'm gonna come. Hang on. I'm gonna come back to you probably after this. I'm gonna measure those distances using the actual flight software, and I'll tell you what it is. But we're not gonna have time to do that today.
All right. So
I just want a yes or no answer from you. Are the distances that the flight tools use, are they right or wrong?
as I say, I don't know everything about those distance. I don't have means to measure. What I'm saying below the equator is much wider than above the equator. We have 32 time zones below the equator against only 19. There's a lot of anomalies below the equator. Distance in Brazil, I'm from Brazil. I drove the US, across the US in 3 days, but you cannot do this in South America, okay? And if you look at the globe, the distances are more or less the same. But 3 days takes you to half, of Brazil. You still have to drive another 4 days to get to the Pacific, right? So that's what I'm saying. Robert, 5 more minutes, please.
Okay, all right, let's keep going. Let's see here real quick. Somebody has kind of made a point in the chat. That's a good point. So somebody made a point, and I wanted to go look it up. There's 3 time zones in Australia, not 2.
All right, it's 3 times now because the middle one is only 30 minutes, and they don't really count that as 30 minutes.
You said it was 2. Were you wrong or right?
There's 2 time zones only because the middle one's only 30 minutes.
Okay? But it's a time zone, isn't it?
But it's not counted. They use the east side or the west side.
So people don't listen to that time zone? They just do
the
what they
30
want?
minutes, they don't go by that. They go either by the Sydney time or Perth time. Because it's only 30 minutes. That one in the middle is only 30 minutes.
I'm going to ask the people who live in Australia to comment on it, but we're going to move on to the next thing because
Okay.
I'm not in Australia, so I know there are people who are, so we'll let them comment on it.
All right.
All right. So, but again, you didn't answer the question, and I think because if you answer it honestly, it'll be bad. But the tools that the pilots use are accurate. They have to be accurate, otherwise, airplanes crash in the ocean. So let's see if we can cover just one more of your scenarios. Let's take a look. So the next one we were getting down to. Now I got to zoom back out on this because it's really big. Okay. Okay. So your next one was this Lufthansa flight. Let's see. We're talking about the details on this one. Bogota to 11 hours. Sure. Okay. What's the scenario again? Okay. They had to do an emergency landing for the well-being of the child. So let's bring this one up real fast. So Lufthansa flight.
Yeah, from Bogota, Colombia to Frankfurt in Germany. Okay. And they made a stop in Manchester, right?
All right. So this is kind of what you put on yours. So stopping in Manchester. if we look at it on the Mercator projection map, here's Manchester sitting up here. So this one, when I looked at it, and I'm going to hate to say this, but it's let's look at it in the globe view. So let's kind of zoom in here. So it's not quite as bad as the Mercator projection from Google Maps, but it really depends upon where they were. Because if they're right, say they're right here, for example, and they need to divert, do they keep going all the way up to Frankfurt, or they divert and go land in Manchester? It depends on where they're at in that phase of the flight. So this one, I almost want to say it's inconclusive because we don't understand what the requirements were at that point in time. Because if they're here, it's the same distance to go to Manchester than to continue all the way over to Frankfurt. We don't know there's enough scenarios of, because obviously Frankfurt could handle the aircraft, but maybe the weather was bad here, or maybe at this point in time, Manchester was closer. This one's kind of could go either way.
Okay.
So this one's kind of inconclusive.
All right.
But I've gone through, several more of these. And unfortunately, since we used up so much time, I did have a real quick thing for you real fast, something you had brought up during your intro video. Basically, I thought it was kind of funny, is like the video of the astronaut coming out of the ISS airlock, and you're like, that's the hatch. It's like, no, this is the hatch. All you were looking at in your little intro video was the thermal cover. That's a floppy cover of Kevlar that's sitting on the outside. The actual hatch closes from the inside so that the air pressure is pushing against it. But it's just an example of what flat earthers do, is you don't give all the information. We've kind of spent an hour and 45 minutes. You've made so many claims in your book. You're not a pilot. You've made so many conclusions using, Mercator projections that aren't accurate representations of the globe. I've gone through pretty much every single one. I wish we had time to do this. I've gone through almost every single one of your scenarios. There are a few that are a wash, but in, I think, 90% of them, when you actually plot it correctly on the globe, it makes perfect sense. Almost every single one.
Well, that's because those the flat Earth map can be wrapped around the globe, so the flight path is going to look the same. Because
there is no accurate flat Earth map. There's not. You already admitted that sometimes the paths are the same, sometimes they're not. If that's the case,
there's no accurate globe. There's no accurate globe. The whole globe thing was thrown away during the Second World War because it didn't work. They didn't work.
Show me a citation for that.
Okay, I'll show you right now. All right.
Yep.
It's right here.
I realize you stopped sharing my screen, but.
All right. So let me remove your screen, and I'm going to show you this right now. No, gonna watch this and then we're gonna close.
I can tell you, on top of being a pilot for the past 20 years, I'm also an Air Force veteran, so I know quite a bit about this stuff.
Okay, hold on, let me, because the thing is just went out of the order here, because we were talking back and forth, and then, okay, all right, let's see this.
Everything started to change in the mid-20th century. There was a world war, and more airplanes were being used than ever before. Editorials published in the New York Times in the 40s called for the Mercator to be discarded and reminded readers the grossness of its errors should not be forgotten. In a series of orthographic maps in 1942 and 43, Fortune magazine declared the Mercator is no map for global war, and it was a dangerous map to use in studying global strategy. An expose on cartography Life published around the same time called the Mercator a mental hazard in a war that is plotted on great circles across the land and sea and through the air.
So, can I ask you a question? If the Mercator map is so bad, why did you use it for all of your conclusions for your scenarios?
I'm not using. I use the globe.
No, you use a Web Mercator map for all your representations for the flight paths across the globe. You use the Web Mercator map. You didn't use an accurate globe map.
There is no accurate globe map.
There is. I just showed it.
You know, you just
If you don't want to look at a map like that, get a globe, run a piece of string from point A to point B, and see what it looks like.
but there's no curvature, you know. So
No.
all right, Robert, I'm gonna close now. It's past, you know, we passed 20 minutes after.
What I would love to do in the near future is
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Hang on, don't jump off. You said you'd be willing to talk to Wolfie. Why don't we try to set up something in the future where Wolfie and I come on? You can try to get a flat Earth pilot. I noticed you had a call or a video not long ago with Josh Silva. Remember that guy?
Yes.
Do you think you could get him to come on and support your side? And then
I don't know. Josh is a busy guy. Also, he's out of all social media, and I have no interest in talking to Wolf. Listen. The thing with Wolfie, he was watching my daughter. My daughter at the time was 13, 14 years old. He was sneaking on her Instagram, whatever, seeing what she was writing. You know, leave him out of it because it's not just about flight path. Okay, the guy is.
Okay.
To me, it's kind of crazy.
Disregard Wolfie. I have several other professional pilots because I admit it. I'm a private pilot. I have several other professional pilots who would be happy to come on and give you their purview of, because they're actual airline pilots. Would you be willing to talk to them and you bring Josh on? Because Josh is making all of these claims. I reached out to Josh, I don't know, about 6 months ago, very, very politely, and asked him if he would discuss his views. And he basically, his exact terms, he basically disavowed anything to do with flat Earth. His exact words for me, I'm not privy to any information on this subject. Thanks for reaching out. I asked him again. I showed him some of the videos that he was in. He came back and said, as I said, not something I'm privy to. If you want to discuss aviation, something is fine. It appears you have some sort of agenda. So even Josh, when asked about his materials, refused to discuss it because he knows he's lying.
No, he's not lying. I mean,
If you got contact with him, go ahead and see if he'll do a debate, but he won't, just because he knows he's lying.
No, he's not. Globe people have their agenda. You have most of the globe people, especially the anti-flat earthers, they are atheists, so they want to really shun anything that has to do with creation, the Bible. They just, you know, and that's the problem. So I have to close now. I'm over the time, almost 2 hours.
Go ahead and run, but that's okay.
No, sir. I told you at the beginning, I had 90 minutes. Okay? It's a busy day for me here. I have work to do here in Japan. It's Monday morning. It's not Sunday night like you. You have your free time there. So I got things to do. I do this show once a month. I cannot do every day. I don't live with flat earth stuff. I have a business. So, all right, guys. Thanks for.
We would change the rules so you can't monopolize all the time.
Thanks, guys, for coming, and I'll see you next time. I'm gonna go ahead and run the ending song, and all right. So see you guys next time. Oh, Robert, I'm gonna go ahead and remove us from live and close the show. All right. Bye bye.
Been here once before.
Nice to meet you. Good, how are you?
Pleasure to meet you, sir. Welcome to MCC.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That's a also cupola, which is one of the windows in there. And that's a picture of Washington. Hello. Been here once before. Hello. Been here once before.
Chroma key means you can use any background that you like. This is what the background looks like. This is the true background that we filmed this on. With chroma key, it means you can have any background that you like this, or maybe this, or maybe this.